All right, welcome back to Siegfried Radio. Siegfried Wagener, MBS KFEL Denver, Friday, April 17th, 1942. This was read 7:15 to 7:30 p.m. Mountain West Time. An analysis of propaganda by Siegfried Wagener. Good evening. Last year, some listeners to my broadcast were upset because I pointed a meaning finger at the Dr. Alexis Carrel, the Nobel Prize winner and creator of the artificial heart pump. These listeners thought that I was challenging Dr. Carrel, the scientist, which was not the case. At the time, Alexis Carrel, the French citizen, was reported working under the Nazis in occupied Belgium on problems of nutrition. To me, there was nothing unusual in this because I had closely scrutinized his book, Man the Unknown, which was published in this country in 1935, and in which Carrel revealed himself as a fascist in mind and in heart. Yep. What made his working under the Nazi Gauleiter in Belgium ominous, however, was a previous close cooperation and friendship with the leading isolationist in this country, Charles Augustus Lindbergh. Isolationist in this country. Well, Lindbergh is today doing his share for the defense of the United States by working in Henry Ford's airplane factory. But Alexis Carrel has gone a step farther in his collaboration with the totalitarian conquerors of Europe. He is either now or is trying to become the Minister for Public Health in Laval's government in Vichy. V-I-C-H-Y. So one of the background influences which kept the United States from being properly prepared for the onslaught of Hirohito, Hitler, and Mussolini has finally come out into the open. He is joining the French government at the very moment when it looks as if Monsieur Laval has joined hands with Hitler to jump at the democratic nations. This man, Carrel, worked for many years here in our country, and his brilliant medical research was financed with American money. An undoubted genius in his field, he has made friends right and left and exercised considerable influence among the American intellectuals. When his book appeared, it was heralded as one of the great revelations of our time, and it was given the highest praise. And very few seem to realize that in the most fundamental questions, Dr. Alexis Carrel agreed nearly 100% with a half-mad Austrian by the name of Adolf Adolf Hitler. Yet Dr. Carrel put it all back in black and white in his book. Here is a passage on page 271 of his Man the Unknown. I quote, "Another error is democratic equality. This dogma is now breaking down under the blows of experience of the nations. It is therefore unnecessary to insist upon its falsehood. The equality of the rights of individuals is an illusion. It is the feeble-minded and the man of genius should not be equal. The feeble-minded and the man of genius should not be equal before the law. The stupid and the unintelligent, those who are dispersed, incapable of intention or effort, have no right to a higher education, and it is absurd to give them the same electoral power as the fully developed individuals," unquote. That's the battle. That's the battle of the pure blood Aryan versus the American way. Both have merits, and it's understandable what he's saying, but how can a government decide who's stupid and who can vote? Who's not good enough and who doesn't get to live? It depends on who's in charge, right? So what if the Aryans were not in charge and we all decided the Aryans are the least subhuman people on the planet and we're going to kill all of them? What if the blacks were in charge and decided all the white people are subhuman and they're gone? Step into the other man's shoes. All of us are spirits and souls, and our flesh is just a cocoon on the outside. So this guy, Carrel, doesn't believe that. Because a moron, somebody that has no intelligence, voting in an election counts as one, and a genius like Einstein counts as one. So that's the American way. And if it's wrong, so be it. I like it, and we all live here. And we protect each other, and we're one. One body of people, all created in God's image to live here among each other and to follow two rules. Love God more than yourself and love your neighbor as thyself. And how can you love your neighbor as thyself when you say things like that? And that's the German way of the Nazis, not the German people. So, let's read that again. Yeah, Dr. Carroll put it all in black and white in his book. Here's a passage on page 271 of his Man the Unknown. I quote, "Another error is democratic equality." That's America. This dog, and it's not really America because we still are a republic, and 43 out of 44 presidents are all from one bloodline. We're moving towards democracy all the way, but we have installed safeguards to protect our way of life. And I'm not going to judge it. I just know what I wish for. Hi, welcome back. We're at Siegfried Wagener's cabin. Sitting on his porch, looking at Horse Creek. And back there is Long's Peak. And we're going to finish up April 17th, 1942. It was a pretty intense talk with Dr. Carroll. And he put it all in black and white in his book, that part. I'm going to start there. Here's a passage on page 271 of his Man the Unknown. I quote, "Another error is democratic equality. This dogma is now breaking down under the blows of experience of the nations. It is therefore unnecessary to insist upon its falsehood. The equality of the rights of individuals is an illusion. The feeble-minded and the man of genius should not be equal before the law. The stupid, the unintelligent, those who are disrespected, incapable of attention, or effort, have no right to higher education, and it is absurd to give them the same electoral power as the fully developed individuals." Unquote. Who speaks here, Carroll or Hitler? The same concepts and ideas run from beginning to end through Hitler's book Mein Kampf. The same unchristian, barbaric principle Hitler applied in his infamous Volksgericht. It's a Volksgerechete. Those so-called courts of the people, where a man is not judged on legal merits of his case, but solely on what Hitler super race savage madmen think should be done with him. You know, that might sound like racist against Nazis, but I mean, aren't they the racist? So if you tell the truth, even though it's that harsh, and even though it's from his point of view, I was told I should say a little bit about me and why this is so important to me and how it happened. My dad's from Patmos, and his dad and his grandfather escaped Greece, and 97% of the Jews were killed by Franco in Greece. And then my mother's family are the Aaronsons and the Schwartzes. And there's, you know, a lot of other names in between, Cohens. But basically, Aaronsons were my grandmother's family. Most of them escaped out of Europe, and my uncle had numbers on his arms, and the first time I ever remember thinking about what a Jew was, I was 6 years old, and my head was the same height as my great uncle's arm. So my eye level was right here, and I walked up and I saw numbers on his arm, and I asked, "What's that?" And no one would tell me what it was. So it just imprinted in my mind to find out what it was. And then when I was 8, we turned into Christians, because my dad had said when we were born we were going to be Christians. And my mom's family was Jewish. So I never even knew my dad was Jewish. Had no idea. And it's just by blood. He was never Jewish for a day in his life. But based on who your family is, if Hitler comes around, you're gone. Even if you're a Buddhist or an atheist, it doesn't matter. It's who you're related to. Which goes back to this. super race of savage madmen things should be done with him. So if they who are in charge decide that my race is bad and that we deserve to be killed, then they'll just go through and find my family and take us away. And that's just not America. That's why we live here. That's why Siegfried picked this place. So when I was 8 years old, I became a Christian. And from 8 to 12, I just loved Jesus, loved God. And then when I was 12, my mom talked to the pastor, and she walked out as a Southern Baptist church and said, you know, the Christians are going to be on this level and the Jews are going to be on this level, and basically said that the Jews are going to hell, from what I heard. And I looked in the sky and cursed God and said, if my grandpa, who's my favorite guy in the whole world, loves God, he's a Jew, loves Yahweh, and Yahweh is Yeshua, just didn't accept Yeshua, but already loved Yahweh, and Yahweh is Yeshua. If there's no Jews, then there would be no story. And he dropped in at D-Day, and he fought all the way to Berlin, while my other relatives are in ovens, or are escaping from ovens. So I pointed in the sky and told God, and I told that church, and I didn't know who God was when I was 8 years old or 12 years old. I just knew what that pastor said God was. So I walked away from the church, and I walked away from their God. And from 12 to 18, 12 to 30, so for 18 years, probation. Probation's 40, it's worse. 18's worse. It's like being stuck in time. In numerology, it's alpha and omega. I wasn't really an atheist. I just didn't believe in anything. I thought religion was a crutch. I didn't know that my dad was a Christian. I mean, he never really talked about it. My Jewish family never really talked about anything, but we would do Hanukkah, and we did do Christmas and, you know, Easter, like everybody else. And then God introduced himself to me during a loss of my first business. First time I really failed, and two of my cousins just beat into me Jesus, you know, and wouldn't stop. And then when I needed Jesus the most and needed God the most, they were there. So then that was when I was 30. So then when I was 34, so I was a Christian from 30 to 34, and I tried to believe, and I went to all the studies and studied all the pastors and just wanted to know more than anything. Got baptized 2 years after, and then 4 years after is when all the big things started happening with me. And I'd rather not go into all those details, but from the summer that the 7-year peace deal with Israel was signed by Javier Solana and Ariel Sharon, for some reason, magically, and also the transit of Venus, that's when I woke up. It was September 2nd of 2004. And I woke up the next day, and I've never been the same since. And someday, or if you've written my Facebook groups, or if you go back through what I've written or talked about before in the videos, you can find out the rest of the story. But my one thing was, with God, was if there's any way to help the Jews, I want to help. I love Jesus, love God, understand, because I read the whole Bible when I was a Christian, from beginning to end. And I said, if King David's in hell, then my grandpa's in hell. And there's no way King David's in hell. So it comes down to this. There's 2 baskets of figs at the end times. Some Jews are from the bloodline of the brother named Judah, and those are the ones that lived in southern Israel. And not everyone that lived in southern Israel was from Judah. So that's the purest kind of Jew that there is if you're from one of the 12 brothers, you're his son or grandson or great-great-great-great-great-grandson, or you're related to him. That's one kind of Jew. Another kind of Jew is like a Catholic or like a Christian who just accepted Judaism, accepted to become a Jew. And there's a big story about them in the southern Russia. I have a whole country just became Jews. But we're never from Israel. Also, everyone from, like if you look at like Northern California and Southern California, think of Israel like that. At first, Israel was one, and then they split into 2 kingdoms. Judah, the southern kingdom. So anyone from Judah is also a Jew. Just like if you're from America, you're an American.